Hey, welcome and happy Sunday to you. Hey, welcome back to No Guy Bicycles, Sprocket Coffee, your weekend briefing of what's going on in the state of the cycling industry, in my opinion, piece of related articles that I've been seeing. And basically, just like you were standing right next to me or sitting next to me in a stand, we are going to talk about those particular topics. This is a interactive live broadcast. So if you want to put in the chat and ask questions or comments, feel free to. If you're watching us on replay, please continue the conversation with the comments below. You'll find additional information and so forth in a description of both your live streaming off of YouTube as well as Facebook Marketplace, the Facebook page or Facebook, I don't know, whatever. Some of the social media pieces. Again, I'm a bike mechanic trying to do YouTube. So, hey, this is, interesting ride and I'm taking you along with me. In any case, I want to thank the trusted partners that I have, Bicycle Wheel Warehouse, which helps me provide wheels for my community, as well as vintage bikes to newer bikes alike. Also, Vital Bike Chains for pre-wax chains if you want to get slick, quick speed chains. Definitely pre-waxed, ready to go. Give them a look. You'll find that particular links below. And obviously, I got some cool gravel thread t-shirt on, so shout out to them. All three of those companies I do discounts below, or into my trusted partner page on I Know a Guy Bicycles. So hey, let's dive into this and let's dive into the chat. Hey, good morning to you, John. Welcome back to the garage. Good morning from St. Louis. That's the place of the arches, right? One of these days I'll get out there and we'll take a little family trip. But yeah, beautiful part of the country. And hey, we're finally getting some calmer temperatures here. It's not so dreadfully hot, and you're not going to be seeing me sweat as much as usual today and hopefully this week. Anyway, but yeah, have a coffee ready to go. Same to you too. Awesome. Schwinn guy, welcome back to the garage. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for being one of my or both of you being part of the community here on YouTube and being a member. So thank you so much and saying kindly for being part of that. And without further ado, we should probably just dive into the crazy rhetoric of this week's stuff going on. Oh, you're rebuilding a coaster brake this week? Fun stuff. We'll talk about Schwinn in a minute, Schwinn guy. Interesting little note fact that I picked up while doing a little bit of research this morning on the particular topics. But in any case, the headlines is basically Giant. And well, basically, where does your bikes come from? Well, number one is a little educational piece. Most people may not know this, that Giant Bicycles in Taiwan company, basically builds majority of the bikes everywhere. It's one of the largest companies in the global state of building bikes. And Giant brand, I'm sure, or Liv is their women's model, and a couple others. They also OEM, basically build bikes for other companies. Been doing this for decades. So that being said, they also have facilities in Taiwan, China, and various other countries. And like most big companies, they probably have a couple of affiliate company names that's really hard to string together that they go under as kind of a safe goat or marketing, depending where you want to look at it, positioning. So there's a lot of talk about in Giant, and basically the Giant headwinds of this particular scenario is basically they got their hands slapped. Reason being, they're the biggest fish in the water of human rights conditions in the workplace, basically in Taiwan. And there were some, I've done a couple pieces on this before. There's several articles in a bicycle retailer, as well as other places, talking about this particular acquisition or accusation. What was it called? Basically, the U.S. government is blaming Giant not to do human rights, basically international law, which they signed. So with that particular hang up, it's prevented a lot of inventory going into the United States from, you guessed it, Giant and the companies that Giant produces. So it's not just them. On top of the tariffs and all the other craziness that's going on, um, this is not clearing up. It's one of those mic drop bomb moments that the administration has done against Giant directly. And Giant, I believe, has visited Washington a couple times at least to try to resolve. And they statements of saying we have already addressed this, and we are now even going further and paying back those individuals that were basically forced labor in a sense, because essentially they're telling you, yeah, you can have a job here, but you got to pay off the headhunters fees, that kind of thing. And which is very illegal in the United States, which is illegal in international labor laws. So they apparently have not appeased or paid off, or whatever your opinion piece of how our current government is functioning, which doesn't seem to be functioning very well. And they're doing these particular hot messes and just kind of walking away, appears to be, and not really come to a resolution except for a certain X, Y, and Z, which if you've been watching news media out of the United States, you probably get the gist of what is expected, and not necessarily what they've already done or where they're going to go forward. But in any case, keeping that out of it. The problem is this has been going on for, I think, 10 months now, and or pretty long, and it doesn't look like it's going to get resolved. What does this mean for the Giant brand and brands that they produce? That's what we're going to get into. And that's pretty of a hot topic of, you might really be thinking about it. And if you're a Giant dealer, or you go to a bike shop that carries Giant, or did, they have a Giant sign on their giant sign on their wall, it may not be seeing very much products. But we should probably touch upon the latest topics of this week. So without further ado, there's a couple hot items here and kind of a follow-up from last week. But so grab your cup of coffee, sit back, relax, listen to my little opinion piece. Generate your own opinion. This is not something that is me, all, and everything in between. It is basically a conversation with my community, and you are part of that community. Either you work at a bike shop, own a bike shop, or you're just an avid cyclist, or just getting into cycling and you're like, what is this wackadoodle bike mechanic talking about? And what should I expect for myself going into this? I'll try to keep it even keel between that cyclist perspective as well as the bike shop. But it's a safe place for all of us to hang out. So let's get a sip of coffee and let's dive into it's kind of like the top 10. Oh, whoa, kind of like a David Letterman thing. Number one, issues been going on with Excel Group. A little bit more clarification from the bankruptcy of the Excel Group, which currently owns the brand Raleigh. And Raleigh has a rich history. Back in 1888, like over a decade old, and they became one of the largest bike manufacturers in the early 19th century. Huge brand, huge name, rich history, sold a couple times. Now the company that owns the actual branding of it is having some serious issues, and European courts and all that. I forget what country it is specifically, but it doesn't sound good. And it sounds like they're going to be liquidated and the assets sold off. What does that mean? In the short run, means basically if somebody has a big pot of gold in their pocket that's ready to burn to buy a brand name, you can. What companies have done this before? Pon Holdings, which owns Cannondale, Cervelo, Santa Cruz, GT. Oh, wait, they shelved them. And various other brands, up to 50 different companies. They're an investment company as well. They bridge over into different categories like auto industry or Caterpillar, big machinery. So a company like that, maybe in the search of it, that's if it's super cheap and they feel like they can do something with the brand name. Unfortunately, the state of the state, especially in the United States, the companies here are not really fat and happy right now. They're really bleeding out, and no one, for the most part, is in a position to do any kind of purchasing acquisition from the courts of the Raleigh name. But that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. Wiggle had an issue a couple of years ago, and they owned Virtus, New Proof, and various other brands. And those brands were bought, and they are being carried on with a new investment company. So being a European strong name, I mean, out of all the companies out there that you're going to buy a name, I think Raleigh would be something that be intriguing to purchase. And a lot of buzz about people who would love to buy the brand and build it up. But needless to say, a lot of companies are in a good position for that. So unfortunately, them and some like handful of other companies that they own are basically liquidating and sell off unless there's some lifeline given by somebody that has more money and dollars and cents to do something like this. So that's the big hot topic. You can watch my Raleigh video from last week, Sprocket Coffee. It's in my shelf and all that below. In any case, get back to the chat here real quick. Oh, Levitt, welcome back to the garage. Howdy, amigos, to you. John, well, just have a enthusiast learning all I can. Oh, you're just an enthusiast. Yep, I think we all are. And as a bike mechanic that's been doing this for a long time or been in the cycling industry, there's always something new to learn. So you're always learning. It's not like I know everything, because things change quite fast. But thank you for chiming in. Appreciate it. 65 Bud, welcome back to the garage from Southeast Nebraska. Nice and cool. Rainy morning. Yeah, we got rain yesterday, so you must be getting it now. So they're east of us, and they get the weather that comes from off of us sometimes. Schwinn guy. Oh, I should actually be pulling these up. I'm sorry. Need to be a little more of a on point today. I'm of two minds about the bike brand topic. After the founder, it seems to be just a word after the founder is gone. You know, it's kind of true. Living through being a Schwinn dealer back in the 80s into the 90s through my parents' shop, watching them fail and then rebirth under a new name, kind of is like that. It's like, I like the brand. It all depends who takes over the brand and how they push the brand forward, and if they're embracing the history and the culture of that brand. But then again, if it's an investment company, it's all about dollars and cents and spreadsheets, counting guys. James, welcome to the garage. Thank you for hanging out with us. Good morning to you too. And Body Outdoors, welcome to the garage. What's up with the Trek being out of stock on all of the new road bike parts? Helmets, clothing, even bike sizes are missing now. I wish I would have went with another company. Oh, yeah. Thank you for making a comment on that. And that is going to be kind of related to what we're going to be talking about Giant a little bit, is the supply and demand. It is affecting every company in the United States because of basically the tariffs and also the costs of bringing imports in on those boats. The cost of those shipping containers have almost quadrupled because of the gas prices globally being affected by something that we did too. So sorry. Sorry. I should start out with this. Yes, I'm in Colorado, Loveland, Colorado, a beautiful place in the United States. So sorry. Brutal. So supply, shortages, tariffs are affecting that. Market disruption, all those things is having a drastic effect for a lot of bike shops to try to navigate through all this craziness, especially when it comes to inventory to sell, as in bikes and parts and accessories. They are all working so diligently hard week to week, trying to work with their vendors to make sure they have the proper inventory, because what that particular wholesaler, Trek in this particular case, may not have the right mix for that particular niche of a bike shop currently, when they used to have billions of different SKUs, and now they've been reducing that, and they continue to be reducing that by some of it on purpose and some of it by just the effect of the market and what's going on. It's just it's a bash, and we're going to talk about, so that hopefully we'll get to that to the end part of this conversation. But yes, absolutely. All right, you guys are burning up the chat. Let's see here. Love it. Welcome back. With the like of X Labs in the US, it's going to be tough for the bike brands. That was another thing I was going to mention too, is like, how many people here have seen some shop that you may have never heard of on Instagram or YouTube, short videos and reels, seeing a huge pallet of X Labs being drawn into their shop area or building it up or doing little videos. I don't think I've seen any excitement over a brand like this in a long time. And nobody's showing pallets of Treks, and you're sure not seeing pallets of Giants saying, hey, we got all these bikes, because there's such a huge excitement for it and a demand. They can't get them in the States fast enough. Why? If you've not heard of X Labs or understand the craze of it, it's not because they have unicorn carbon. It's not because it's, the most trendy thing that the hipsters are loving. No, it is basically price-driven, high-quality product coming out of China. Beats the pants off a Trek and Specialized and Giant, which they don't have anything to compete with anyway. But anyway, that's brutal, painful parts of it for sure. Absolutely. Let's see here. Oh, another one. James, welcome to the garage. Thank you for commenting. Canada is considering blocking exports of critical materials to the USA for political reasons. I don't blame you. And are working on finding other countries to export to. That's where a huge division, even the companies like Trek and companies that are United States branding, but they are all global markets. They are pushing their inventory everywhere else, including Giant. Have to. There's got to find a place to it. Oh boy, we better get back to some of the topics here. Back to the top 10. New York City cracks down on online retailers selling high-speed e-bikes. That's a whole show in itself. But the whole e-bike thing, there's so many different perspectives of it. And here in the States, it's not just like one country makes one rule of all this. Each particular state is trying to navigate their own regulation against some of these basically motorcycles, and getting in kids' hands is one of the many issues, as well as battery safety and all that. So you'll go to any particular story website and you'll see a laundry list of different particular topics from every state about e-bikes and so forth, and also countries as well. So if you need to know that information and to get into that space, NBDA is a great source of bringing those articles. They're trying to cover all that as well as others. And I do have a link in my description below. And if you are a shop and think about becoming a member, there's also a discount code too. But I think they have a special going on, like super cheap to join in. Try it out for a year and just see if you get the valuable information and interactions that you're looking for. All right. Also, number 3, Leva posts strong Q2 D2C, direct-to-consumer growth. Basically, it's a clothing and protection brand. So you are seeing, the reason I bring this up is there's a few companies, they're actually doing okay, or actually showing profit, including Giant, oddly enough. But there's a lot of doing really well, or doing okay, or not doing well at all, and something's going on underneath. So that's one of the brands, clothing. They're doing their homework. They're doing it right. They have the right mix. Maybe they had too much inventory and they're actually moving some stuff. Who knows? Maybe that's one of the brands that was able to get into the States with lower tariff costs and was able to, or stockpiled before, and they're actually capitalizing it now. Those can be inflated numbers. It's like, it may be great for the first quarter or second quarter, but is it sustainable? That's the problem. There's so uncertainty. There's no stability that helps these companies. Even though they have positive numbers, they better bank in it, because they don't know what's going to turn on a dime on them that might drastically hinder their ability of running their business. Okay, number 4 was Giant. We'll talk about that. Number 5 is Specialized settles a high-end profile e-mountain bike liability case. Basically, it's a runoff. So the runoff on the motor, if you don't know, it's when you're pedaling, it keeps going for a little bit. Well, some of these were just going a little too long or not stopping, and caused an injury for this individual. You can read the full article in Brain on that, Bicycle Retail and Industry News. And but interesting, these companies are going to be held liable. It takes a long process, But if they have a fault, even though they may know it or not, they're going to be in the crosshairs. Therefore, a lot of bike shops, not a lot of, but there's a few shops like me that don't work on e-bikes. I'm not insured for it. There's become a huge division of how to run a business that direction. If I needed to support my business and do all the certifications and licenses and insurance and all that, I would, but I'm pretty busy what I'm doing as just an acoustic bike mechanic in a garage and repurposing classic bikes. I don't necessarily need. A lot of people some people are like, why don't you get an e-bike? I'm like, I don't need to right now, but I will. I mean, I'm not saying it won't happen, but right now I don't need to do that. Therefore, all these little things that are shaking out and liabilities and scary things, I'm kind of just avoiding, which is nice. But again, all those specialized dealers, either a corporate or not, going to be looking at this and going, ooh, scratching their head. Is this a brand or this is models that we want to bring in and that kind of thing. All right. Okay, so number 6 is a new non-electric bike imports shift to new origin countries. I wonder why. Too expensive to bring in here, so they're shifting everything out to different countries, different markets. South America is about ready to ramp up. Australia, New Zealand. There's a huge Asian market as well as Europe. And we're not the only ones. I mean, we were one of the bigger probably purchasers of bikes and markets and all that, but we're not the only one. And bolstering all those countries where they have huge cycling investment and communities is really going forward on that. Number 7, we're talking about Fox factory specialty sports revenue down almost 10%, 9.4% in the second Q. Okay, Fox suspensions. I have a little bit of a thought on this. Just reading the headlines, the OEM portion of it going into those higher end bikes, which is part of the K-shaped economy, which is number one, you can't get those bikes into the United States without paying huge tariff costs. And in addition to the cost of shipping over, then also there's not very much of a demand. That's a double hitter. They don't make cheap forks, cheap suspension. So it's all of the upper end. And then if you're catering to that particular market and you haven't adjusted your inventory flows or your market analysis to what other markets you're going to be shifting that inventory towards, the products are not being demand purchased. This is the time of year when they're putting their pencils to paper to getting those bikes done for the next year. That's where it's going to really hinder a lot of where you're really going to see the real results is a 9 to 12 month lag. We're already starting to see that, as in brands like Giant and Trek apparently not having the right inventory. That's going to continue to do so. And that's a problem, big problem. And it's a problem for companies like Fox that supply suspensions, not just for aftermarket, but for OEM bikes to go onto those production runs, which those production runs are not going to be as many or as much, or they're going to be reduced. And also those brands, like let's say Santa Cruz, for example, owned by Pond Holdings, they still have a little bit of money to throw around, still make some really cool bikes, but they are shopping who can make the best suspension for the price for the current state of the state to bring that price point of that bike down or the same or what have you. So they might be looking at RockShox. They might be looking at various other brands. And you might see some brands that pop up that you never heard of before. Case in point, X Labs. So that's a tricky bit. All right. So GoPro is not doing so well. They dropped 31% in Q2. Whew, is that right? Over year to year. Plummeted. That's the word they're using. Plummeted to 31% year to year. So nobody's buying the little fancy cameras, and everybody's buying the ones that are off of Amazon. There's a billion of them. So that's going to be one of those. It's going to be up there like one of those, like, what was that exercise company about went under and COVID saved them? Peloton. The bikes, and they were about ready to crash, like completely go under. Then everybody had to get a Peloton for COVID. And then they went dumb and decided to open up stores and do all these other things. They didn't really see it's going to happen in short term, like all the other companies, which seems. But anyway, also coming to the last couple, Ritchie design recalls an alloy fork insert. So if you have a Ritchie fork, I would have it checked by your local bike making bike shop to make sure that insert is correct or your fork is not affected by it. And you'll be able to find a list of that online, probably under the Ritchie. Just if it's a recall, it'd probably be under the recall status in the United States, but you probably want to go to the actual company itself to see if you can find information on that if it's related to the fork that you have. There are only 775 of them made, so it's an aftermarket fork, looks like. So hopefully that can be retained and brought back in, reeled in pretty good. So we'll see. And Silca, other big interesting news about Silca. I do a lot of Silca chain waxing, and I do sell some Silca aftermarket drip lubes and that kind of thing. And interesting enough, they are now distributing, which I thought they were already, but apparently they're distributing through BTI and HLC. And if you don't know, if you're just a cyclist going, I don't know what you're talking about, a whole bunch of acronyms. BTI and HLC is wholesalers for small parts and some bikes and stuff like that supply a lot of bike shops. In other words, they have warehouses across the United States and I believe up in Canada too. And they, they have multiple brands. That's where a lot of smaller brands like Silca, even though they're a big name, there are a smaller company within that niche, like also Continental and various others. They'll bring those, or Muck Off is another one. These brands, and they'll stock them here and wholesale them out to bike shops will have accounts, and they can do a mix one order, makes it easy, a one-stop shop for a lot of these shops to get their inventory and so forth. But a lot of shops are being a lot more diverse lately because those wholesalers, like the big brands like Trek and Giant, are having huge disruptions as well as inventory and what have you, and getting the right mix. So a lot of shops are already pivoting their buying behaviors to more straight to company. In other words, for myself, instead of going through HLC or BTI, which they won't sell to me, by the way, because I'm too small. I'm a garage shop, which I don't have a brick and mortar. That's a whole different thing. So they're missing a huge opportunity. But I went to Silca directly and became a dealer. So smaller companies like that are working with smaller shops like myself to be able to run my business and do what I need. I can still get the products, but now I have just a little bit more of a margin, not much, but a little bit more of a margin. And quite honestly, since these companies are now moved to Shopify, most of them, the small ones, it's so damn easy to set up accounts through these companies. So easy that you can do your orders off your phone so quick that you don't have to go through the BTI website or this and another. Do you have a better margin opportunity going direct through the company, like Challenge Tires, for example, when you get like let's say 10% more margin from buying from these other companies, because you're adding to their pockets by holding something when they can just go straight to you as a bike shop, which is interesting. Because even though they do sell online direct to consumer as well as Silca, it behooves you as a bike shop to look at those margins direct with those companies, because you may be able to have better opportunity with that particular brand, and commitments are way lower. Although shipping commitments may be a little bit easier to mix in with a whole bunch of collage of different brands. But quite honestly, I would really take a look at how much you're saving and how much you're pushing your shop into buying more inventory than you should be, just to hit the free freight marks. Yeah, that's a whole tricky bit. And what I mean on that, and Silca intrigues me that they're going into these particular brands, which is good for them because they're just, moving more inventory, bigger brands, be able to get into more shops. That's great for them. And not unexpected. And there's no negativity to that necessarily, nine for me. But the thing is these particular BTI and HLC, they have to buy that inventory. they're paying for it. So that means they have to tie up their running capital. Yeah, so that means that Silka in the bike shop is less profit margin, maybe, or maybe they'll keep it the same. They'll be interested to see what that is. But those companies, they're all about volume, that the wholesale to the bike shops, and they're in a pickle, especially in the States, because they're hit with a double dinger, not just because of the cost of containers of all this inventory coming in, and it's addition to the tariffs and stackable tariffs, and also the tariffs that got refreshed up to 10 to 12% through some of these countries. So that's pretty much all of them going into the United States. That's hard on inventory. So that's pretty much your top 10 highlighted news, my opinion piece. Let's jump into the chat before we go back into our main topic. We're talking about where the heck those bikes are coming from. Do you really know? Interesting, right? But in any case, let's see. Where did I leave off? I'm going to scroll up. Rob, 36. Welcome to the garage. All the cheap mail order stuff causing much upheaval. No. I wouldn't say is late because they got rid of de minimis, and there is still Temu and AliExpress, but there's a whole bunch of issues and all that go with that. But it's not, I don't think it's causing any other additional issues as a current state, for sure. Seems like lots of innovation of low-cost e-bikes, which seems surprising. Well, that's a market that's still relevant. So relevant that United Wheel, which owns Huffy, also owns Batch, which is their e-bike line, which is more directed at bike shops. They're working, to bring lower price e-bikes and continue to do so, because there's still a demand, even though in the States there's still demand. That's where all the regulations and so forth. But also United Wheels is also the brand that owned Niner and shelved them, like upon holding Shelf GT. Just wasn't relevant in the scope of scheme right now. They just can't put money into it. It's not the return, basically, when it comes to dollars and cents. Lemon, what you got there? Trek Damane SL4 being pushed online. Unfortunately, it is $2,300 for aluminum rim, all 11-speed Tiagra. Yeah. Oh, yeah, $2,300. So would you want that? Or would you want an X-Lab for roughly the same price, full carbon? And carbon wheels, I think. And I think it's 105 wired, not electronic. So that's another thing that was released this week. Wasn't in the search, but Trek did release their newer, what was it? Damane. They revamped it. And I watched a little 10-minute clip or 5-minute clip on it, and little specs that they changed and so forth. And it seems logical sounding, but if you read between the lines, it's basically, how do we make this cheaper? And sold as new, because my buddy John Bradley, he's been on the show and has worked for Trek and been in the industry over 50 years, and it says the biggest thing all these brands are going to try to do is bring something new to drive more sales. That's all they have in their back pocket. It's like, hey, check out this new thing. You gotta have one of these. I'm not sure you'll see a lot of them in the States, a few probably. I don't know if it's a model that they could compete against X-Labs just yet, because X-Labs only hit like 4 or 5 months ago. So that's hard to react to something of that price structure. That's more of a 9-month to a year reaction model. So we'll see. I mean, they had some Kool-Aid to it where they got rid of the little ISO thing. It's maybe a pound or two lighter. Some innovations with, tire clearances, I guess, and something like that. Um, you know, it's very strong Kool-Aid. It's really strong to watch. It's like, ooh, that's really sweet. Almost too sweet. Anyway, what goes around comes around. Reminds me of a couple rounds of mopeds. Yeah, you're right. Well, it's not like, I mean, Schwinn guy and various others of us have been in the industry for long enough to know, like, this smells like something I've seen before, right? Like, I've seen it, felt it. Yeah. Is it going to be relevant? Is it going to be changed? Something like that? Anyway. All right. Just going to go through a couple of these. Got to talk about e-bikes. So yeah, there's a lot of chat about the e-bike stuff. But anyway, we probably should get into the topic so I don't run out of time for Giant. But thank you for all from chime in. You guys are just on it in the chat today. So here's to a sip of coffee to you. Okay, Giant. I mean, Giant always struck me kind of as a funny company in the 90s going, wait a second, are they the ones that actually build some of the brands that we sell? Is that a kind of a conflict of interest? Well, apparently this has been going on way before I even started working in the cycling industry. Yeah, pretty insane. So a little side note, and Schwinn guy might be able to validate this or not, but there's, the internet search says Giant also built over 75% of Schwinn's entire catalog during the 70s and the 80s before establishing its own brand. So they were the quiet company building stuff from other people, Schwinn, 75% of their catalog in the 70s and the 80s. That's huge. I mean, I remember the Schwinn rep coming in the late 80s, early 90s. He had like a briefcase and a big binder of like all the stuff that they sold. It's like insane. So Giant is a version of what X Labs has been for the last 15, 20 years. They've been around. X Labs is not new. They're just new to the direct-to-consumer or direct-to-bike shop market as a brand. And you've seen them on now, Tour de France and various other races. So they're a company that's really hitting the water. And then they're cutting out a whole bunch of pockets in the way of people taking their piece of the pie, making the prices of the bikes so absorbent. So that's where you're seeing X Labs is very similar to what Giant was in the 70s and 80s. And now Giant came out back then, made their own line, still is today. And they're one of the largest, they are the largest bike manufacturer in the world. So when you're talking about that, they're making brands, and they're really, it's really hard to find out Trek, Merida, Ideal, any of these companies, knowing what brands that they're making currently and where. It's such a shell game. You have to like know somebody and pay them, with bike grease or something, or like magical wax, whatever, because they don't like sharing that knowledge, and those brands don't really want to be divulged their name underneath, like Giant, right? But those particular brands are in a pickle, especially if they're working with Giant. Well, let's just lay it out there. Giant, over the years, and they may not currently, but over the years, have built Trek bicycles, as we've alluded, Schwinn's back in the day, Scott bikes, Colnago, Cannondale, Canyon, and various others, right? So if a company like Cannondale, for example, right? Cannondale, pretty big company and so forth, is being built by Giant, would you behoove the same company that owns Canada would have their other lines that they have, other 50 lines, be built by Giant from variations of the Schwinn, because they own Schwinn now, to Mongoose, to Cannondale, to Savello, to Santa Cruz, to whatever other 50 other brands, and a few they have shelved upon holdings. So basically they're paying a big check to them. I'm sure they still are, because they're not going to build bikes. They don't have their own factories. They just own these brands, and they leverage these manufacturers like all the other companies like Trek and Specialized. Oh, wait, Specialized is 30% owned by Merida, which is a competitor of Giant. Various others. Oh, no. What's going on? Okay. I got a notification from one of my apps. Anyway, so that being said, making all these particular brands, if they are being blocked because the box is made from Giant and coming from the Giant distributor in Taiwan or warehouse that they're porting in and so forth, if it's a line item coming into the United States, those most likely, I could be wrong, are being blocked as well. So it's not just Giant bikes and live, it's everything Giant produces most likely is being blocked going into the United States, as a good chunk of it. So those companies that may be still working with them to produce products are gonna have to look at other other manufacturers, Merida or Ideal, or a handful of other no-name companies that nobody knows about, because they're known in the cycling industry portion of it. But the companies that are building out of Vietnam and Cambodia is slapped all over Trek boxes, and Vietnam all over Specialized boxes. And I don't think they're saying they're Merida or Giant, but they're other companies. So it could be front company names that might still funnel to the big ones, or the the company's cousin's owner, because a lot of these companies are still family owned, Giant as well as Merida, big family owned companies. So it's a hot mess. So they are doing as much of a shell game to be able to get inventory built and into the United States because of this huge work condition situation that Giant got themselves into. It's not because Giant's the only one that's doing this. It's just because Giant was the biggest fish, in my opinion. Like, oh, well, we'll slap their hand and make them suffer, because they'll probably sustain and they'll probably pay up or fix it. More pay up. And in addition to, Merida had a reaction to this when it first hit Giant. Like they were doing the same practices as well as probably a lot of other companies. So here it goes down the rabbit hole, and we're going to go down a rabbit hole pretty intensely here. So bike manufacturers, Giant, they make a lot of the parts that go on the bike, but not all the parts. So the wheels probably made in a different facility, spokes definitely in a different one, hubs possibly another. Maybe they make their own forks, might be part of it there, part of it sourced out. So building bikes in the magnitude of how Giant builds bikes in such huge quantities, a lot of the stuff they source themselves to build, but a lot of that inventory is coming from other brands like Fox Shocks, for example, or Shimano componentry, SRAM component, Campanolo componentry, coming from different sources, different countries, and all that. Could be stackable possible tariffs on top of that as well as the materials that are being used on those are stackable. So I would hate to be working on the docks in the United States, being a customs and trying to figure out what line items am I looking for. And I'm sure they're probably leveraging AI to come up with all that. And you know how accurate AI is. Such disruption. So what they be able to slide into the States one week may vary by the next week, depending on the AI algorithms being outputting for the custom agents bringing the United States. So there's a whole layer of insanity here. So you look at a bike frame, and maybe they are still making them for Trek, And for them. And they're like, okay, well, you got Shimano componentry on that, and you have branded wheels, Bontrager or whatever. Well, those are made either by Giant or another carbon wheel company, either in Taiwan or China, to be put on there. And maybe the facility they're using to export everything out is out of Vietnam under a different name. You can see how nuts this is. I mean, to follow the dollars and the breadcrumbs is just monumentally, just so huge and so insane. But somehow Giant did report a positive numbers the last 2 quarters, I believe. How is that even possible? Well, because the United States is no longer becoming the big purchaser. And they adapted and adjusted their model. Now they're selling to more Europe. Huffy's selling more to Europe. They found that as a huge lead in. They're going to focus on international sales, was mostly Huffy's were just sold in the United States. Now, luckily for Europeans, you get the Huffy's too. It's a running joke here. So, nothing against the brand. It's a, decent company, what have you. And they did provide a whole bunch of bikes that are inexpensive to get people into cycling in the States for decades. But now, as a company like that, they're diversifying and looking at other countries that, well, maybe their market's a little better, maybe their little markets are more malleable for the product mix that we're going to be making. Because right now, they're trying to figure out what they're doing in 2027 release to 2028. So yeah, they only could make decisions what they see today because it's so disruptive right now. They can't anticipate anything. So they got to go what they know as in real time. As in bike shops need to go, well, they need to go as in real time. Will you get a couple of those Giants? Yeah. You may not even get enough bikes from Giant to get hit free freight. And that's the thing with bike shops, because bikes to ship are very freaking expensive. So, or wheels or any of that stuff right now, because guess what? Gas prices, in addition to everything else, it was always expensive to begin with. Now, as a bike shop, you look for free freight as much as you can. And when you get an opportunity that you're going to sell all through those X Labs, well, I might get 2 pallets of those instead of 1. Number one, so I have inventory on the floor and a demand inventory that's actually selling. So all those individual shops have picked up X Labs and gotten X Labs and actually became X Labs portal. It might be a flash in the pan for this year, but they are capitalizing it and making margin and selling bikes, which is really hard to do right now, and stuff. And just ask Trek. They are hurting. They have to be hurting to sell inventory. Their shops are closing. They've had to reduce their storefronts because that's expensive. And, the products coming in, they're reliant on somebody else building their products. They used to make a lot of stuff here in the States, but they just couldn't do it. So 2007, 2008, they shifted everything overseas. Well, they still have some stuff here, but it's not anything in the magnitude they can do high volume. And those facilities that they built, it's not like you flip a switch and turn on the lights again and start building bikes again here in the States. It doesn't work that way. That takes like 10 to 15 years to establish a bike brand like Trek to be built back in the United States again. That's just not going to happen. And we'll be in a third or fourth administration and the government change by then, maybe. We'll see what November looks like for us here in the States. But anyway, so back to Giant and the rabbit hole of bikes and who makes them. Well, maybe they're just making the frame and forks for a particular brand. Well, now that brand needs to go find somebody else to make that frame and fork pretty quick for next year, because they can't afford not to have bikes come into the United States. Although we're twisting ourselves in pretzels here, trying to get through our day-to-day between gas prices and the cost of everything at the store and everything. But people are still buying bicycles. Why? When gas prices go up in the United States, there's a huge insurgence in the cycling community for used and new bikes, but they're usually price point correct. In other words, your $5,000 to $10,000, even the $2,000 bikes, a little steep for a lot of the markets currently. So either you have or you have not. And there's more have-nots or more nervous of having not than having going into the next year. So people are shifting to have their bikes worked on, which you've seen multiple stories amongst everywhere, including myself, a huge insurgence of service. Variation of inexpensive checkovers to full overhauls, because they understand the value they're putting into that is definitely worth doing, because they can either get rid of a car payment or insurance on a car payment, or paying for gas for commuting, enjoying the nicer weather that we're having. That may change in some of the markets where there is a winter, but there's people that do learn that you can ride bikes, especially here in Colorado, still about 70% of the time during the winter. You just need to layer up and what have you, or look at other transportation forms of bus and what have you, or train. So anytime there's a huge gas spike, especially when there's no end in sight, should I say that? Since there's no end in sight for gas prices going down, therefore people are going to adapt to this new norm. We've seen this spike for basically bicycles in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. So here's the next generation. Us have been around in the cycling industry. We know this is it. This is compounded, though, with a whole bunch of other things going on. The used market for used bikes, they're tariff-free. So basically, only thing you're paying tariffs on, or extra costs that might be a little more inflated, is consumable parts to get those bikes up and running. Tires, tubes, cables, housings, various others. Far cry costs compared to a new bike, which now either the company's eating the tariff costs, which a lot of them have been, to try to keep the costs the same, normalized, but that is going to change next year, next season, next cycle, whatever it is, because they can't sustain to keep a company when they're not making any margin. And they're not waiting for a check to come back from the government because they got their hands slapped because they did it illegally, so, or whatever. Those funds come back to them, but they are not taking that money and going, yeah, let's go have a party at, go down to Tijuana and have a great time. No, they're actually taking that money and investing it back in their company to sustain any kind of disruptions going forward. Try to their survival mode. All these companies are in survival mode. So Giant, for example, is in survival mode, even though they're showing a little bit of profit. But what kind of profit is that? Is it sustainable profit? Is it a good profit? Is it because the profit they're so bad last year, so even doing mediocre is better and still showing a positive to their stockholders? They're a traded company. That's why you get to know about Merida and Giant and Ideal out of Taiwan, because they're traded companies. So they have to divulge their books, their numbers, and all that. So going through all of that, right, and that hot mess of these companies working with them, twisting themselves in pretzels, maybe Giant's making some of the bikes for them and shipping to different markets, but they're whatever's going to the United States and maybe going to that Cambodia or Vietnam facility, which is maybe a different company altogether, or maybe they're cousins of the Giant family. I don't know, but it's a mess, and it's continuously going to go, because they are not seeing a resolution of Giant with United States and Giant head to head at least 10 months out. That's a whole nother building cycle of season for bikes and parts and everything in between. So yeah, Giant moved their but they moved their headquarters, the United States headquarters, from California to Boulder, Colorado, which is a stone throw away from me. And a lot of people, when they do moves like that, don't move with the company. They're like, well, we have families and stuff. We're not going to just uproot. We'll go find another company, another job or whatever. So there's going to be some hiring, obviously, from Giant. And I've already seen some posts on LinkedIn, inside reps, that kind of thing, because all of that's being moved there. And Boulder is a pretty expensive place to live in Colorado. It's probably one of the most expensive places to live in Colorado. Therefore, all those employees most likely are going to commute at least 30 minutes to an hour from the surrounding cities to go into there. So yeah, I mean, I'm an hour away, literally an hour drive to Boulder, probably an hour to their office. And, you know, should I become a inside sales rep? I mean, they have benefits, right? They pay okay ish. I might just apply just for fun, just to see. They would take like an old buddy duddy like me. And then again, being a sales rep for a company that doesn't hardly have any inventory going into the United States. So basically, you'd be just sitting there selling whatever little is coming in and warranties. Yay! Such a great sell. I mean, it might be great or it will be great once things get cleared up and they're able to do business like normal, whatever the new norm is going to be. But that's the tricky bit. We don't know what the new norm is. It just seems like there's a huge new disruption and change, and it doesn't like gets fixed. It just stays a mess. Like taking apart that front suspension and not putting it back together. You just leaving it on the workbench and it just gets pushed aside. Well, guess what? You get enough of those little projects pushed aside, before you know it, you're losing parts when you go back to it. Like, oh, wait, what were we doing here? Oh, I'm missing the spring or whatever. Because it fell on the floor and got swept up. And, it's maddening what it is. Because I love the cycling industry. I've been part of it for such a long time. I don't want to see any more companies completely fail like Raleigh. Or any companies that are supporting those brands. And I don't want to see Niner get closed because they had to shut the office down 10 miles away from my house. Like, those people lost their jobs. The communities now no longer have the Niner, staple as one of the Fort Collins' cool companies. It's just, I don't want to see that. I mean, was there changes that need to be done for a lot of these companies? Yeah, absolutely. Should have been shaken up a little bit? Sure. But not to the point to put them all at the threat of basically going under, especially United States companies. These companies have been around, well, Trek just hit 50. I mean, that's a milestone, huge. And unfortunately, they couldn't do a big party because they're broke. I mean, they have to be very careful of what they're doing because to sustain this, what they're going through, they can't have a big party. They can't pay for all of that. There's definitely cracks. You're seen as huge, and they're gushers now, and they're all doing everything they can. But unfortunately, it's happening so fast that they may not be able to recover or take the learnings and do the right or the better thing or the better options or supportive options. I mean, yeah, I can say that. I can say a lot of these guys and gals, well, they should have done this. They should do this. They should have done this. That's what they're, got themselves into. Yeah, sure. But you got to take it with a little bit of a bigger perspective of it takes them a while to change. It's not something they can pivot like myself in a small shop going, wait a second, wax change is a good idea. Maybe I should really focus on adding that to my service packages. Maybe I should focus on a little more of the used market. If anybody's watched my channel at all, I do a lot of used bikes, parts, frames. Also, that's how my business started. It's just providing solid, good road bikes under $1,000 that are used for my community. And lo and behold, that's, branched out to others and parts and so forth, and a whole bunch of service. And luckily for me, what the biggest demand in my cycling community here and abroad, like all across the United States and YouTube and everything, is really hit and resonated. That's awesome. And I'm doing okay. The bike shop portion of what I'm doing is doing fantastic. But there's a darker side of it. When you're looking at these brands, they can't pivot fast enough. They don't see they're so far in it in some aspects of it. They're like, well, we'll just wait it out. But the clock is ticking on them because their bank accounts are going down, and their investment companies they're borrowing from are going up, And at some point, those tickets are going to be called on, like, yay, well, we need to see some profit. We can't keep you afloat, or we got to sell the brand, or whatever that is. And each company, it has its own unique challenges. I mean, Specializes challenges are unique to Treks, and Trek challenges are completely unique to Giants. They used to be all kind of the same playing field of doing business. Now it's like their problems are all completely different, and some might be able to sustain, some may not sustain. Um, all those kinds of things. It's just insane how that just, the landscape in the businesses and the companies in the United States is. So, I mean, good luck to Trek. I mean, I hope they do fine and get through this. Um, I'd hope they put more value in supporting local bike shops, independent bike shops, which seems like they were not really supporting bike shops for the last 2 decades. But this is their opportunity to get back to the grassroots of what the bike shops. I mean, my parents' shop helped Trek build to be what Trek was. I mean, we're one of the many of 1,000 shops that carried Trek and drank the Kool-Aid and sold hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of units and thousands of units in the 80s and the 90s. And a lot of those shops have disappeared, but there's a new crop of shops where maybe some of you have picked up Trek because they're going to try to sell anything to anyone at this point. And you look at the depth of the inventory, like, ooh, well, maybe it wasn't a great idea because they don't have as much, maybe in some cases, or maybe they have the right mix of stuff for your market and your niche. But the tune, what I've been hearing from other shops that have picked up Trek recently is like, no major commitments, no super forced down Kool-Aid's a concept. It's like, you will just be happy that you make an order. And we don't really care if you're a mile away from our corporate store. That's it's really interesting how things have flipped. But here's the big question is those who are in charge of these companies, and I've heard a lot of them talk in either podcasts or in person at the bike shows or what have you. It does still seem like they don't quite get it. Like they are hoping they can just go back to what they are comfortable with, but who not? You can't blame them. But that has changed to the point now that it may not ever be the same. And if it gets to what it was, you're talking decades later and you're no longer be in the industry. So, and what I'm talking about is the business of stepping over, forcing product, being dictators to the independent bike dealers, basically. Every bike dealer, if they haven't already figured it out, have gotten really smart and going, hey, you're not the only fish in town. And quite honestly, my community doesn't really care if I carry your brand or some other brand or whatever. As long as I have something for them, that's all that really matters. So you can take your commitments and your forced ideas and take it down the road. So that's a huge slap to some of these companies because they no longer can rely on that source of income from those, some of them big shops, and go, oh, you're not going to take these pallets of these bikes that are not price competitive to the X Labs that you're brought in? Shit. So yeah, that's the hard truths, and the hard truths are going to have to change to some new behaviors and commitments. The commitments are not from down, it's now they need not from up, committing up, it's now them to commit to the bike shops downwards. And I'm not saying that bike shops are below, it's just the tree of how stuff comes down, right? I'm sorry, I'm wearing a tree with bicycles. Anyway, and that was not deliberate. That was just how it works. So when you're looking at that, what as myself as a bike shop, the brands I want to work with are going to say, yeah, we'll take care of you. whatever you need. We'll let you know when inventory is coming in, price point, all those things to protect this price point or what have you. We're not going to tell you what you need to sell. We can tell you what's been more popular and what have you, like they all do. But there's less of commitments from the bike shop to carry those brands effectively within their markets. Ooh, I sounded smart there for a split second. Anyway, needless to say, they dug a hole they didn't see happen. They walked right into that hole, and now they're up to their neck in debt and not really knowing what to do. And there is no bailouts for bike shops, bike companies. Nah. Matter of fact, this current administration doesn't look at bikes kindly at all. So we're all on our own. All we have is each other. So what might be your main competitor? Maybe a brand that you had problems with before. We got to work together, people, to get through this. However shape and form that is, we have to work together. Because some of these brands, if they're not working together, I mean, it's going to be a crazy thing when you see in the same room, like the Specialized and the Trek people together, trying to figure out something together to figure out how to navigate the current state of the state in the States. That's a jaw-dropping moment. It's happening. So they have to work, figure out how, I mean, if you don't know, I mean, yeah, it's something that we all have to take all those biases and angry bits and set them aside. Okay, I know you've been doing this horrible things for so long, but I'm going to put a pin in that and go, okay, what can we do to work together to help you out? Help us out. Help. It's a twofer, right? Threefer, whatever. It's either working with different warehouses, moving inventory, reducing, streamlining, sharing containers of inventory, whatever it may be, how they can work together. Maybe this is branding, naming, that kind of thing. But I'm telling you that you're going to see bike shops, if not already, transform from this overly boutique-y snobbiness scenario to more approachable branding, more helpful of community-based bike shops, because that's what's working. The high elitist super high-end showrooms are no longer valid in a lot of these markets right now. Not saying they all aren't, but a good chunk there isn't. And a lot of shops that have been just hanging on the wire, they're going under, or they're just checking out, like, we're done. I need a tire. So you have that. I mean, even KHS, which is a big distributor out of California, they shut down. They're like, families like, we have nobody that's going to buy, and we're done. Cash out. So you're seeing a lot of that, and you're seeing the corporate stores reduce. And you're seeing a lot of bike shops either check out or quit or go under. Which all is not good for the cycling community whatsoever. So you look at Giant, which is producing the big chunk of the bikes, even bikes that go into Walmart, Target. Well, I don't know if Target's even carrying bikes anymore. Dick's Sporting Goods, which is a lot of brands from Pond Holdings, what have you. There's some. This is not the last of where you're going to be hearing of companies shifting and twisting and turning and put themselves in pretzels, because the only thing that's normal now is constant chaotic change. That doesn't seem to be helping. There's a few companies navigating this and making it work, but that doesn't mean that next week, next month, next year is going to be the same piece that works for them. It's too disruptive. It's no way you can run a business that way. So they have to get some really smart people. Then you're gonna have to have some really good connections, and you're gonna have some new and old partnerships put together to navigate through all this. In other words, we're all to work together to make sure. So, oh, that's I think Marin San Quentin is made in Indonesia. So a lot of bikes have been made in a lot of different countries for a while now. And now guess what? They all have one thing in common. They're hitting our ports in the States, where there's huge customs changes almost weekly. And they can't get you don't know, it takes about like a month for stuff to get from Asia on a boat over into the States and go through customs. So it's not something they can just change on the fly. Like, oh, we need to get stuff in soon. Oh, we're going to hold back on it. Oh, we're going to turn ships away and take them back. Well, that's, an added cost to something that you didn't sell. Like it's like going to the grocery store and I'm gonna, buy that gallon of milk and realize the price is too high and drive back, but you still cost time and gas. Somebody has to pay for it still. Somewhere it's just added, and that kind of thing. So yeah, there's a lot of great chat in here. Schwinn guy giving us schooling on Raleigh. That's cool. Yeah, thank you all for being part of it. And yeah, so I even worked on a couple of trucks that had China stickers on it, which are not too long ago were being made in China, like 10 years ago or 8 years ago. Then I moved to Cambodia, and everything I remember about Cambodia is horrible. It's a scary place, right? And it's they're finding less expensive countries to build stuff because labor is cheaper or what have you, or makes more sense facility wise and what have you. But what it is in a day for those countries, it provides jobs. So regardless if it's not making much, it's still making more than nothing that they're making. So it's, you're building up these economies, where Taiwan was one of those countries, and China obviously is one of those countries we've been completely buying from decades. It's huge money insurgents, and that's globally. So it's not going to change in the fact that we're going to just build a whole bunch of stuff here in the States. That's just not going to happen. Because there's not going to be a market for the stuff that's going to be built. So, keeping that in mind, we're always going to, bicycles have always been an international collage, a beautiful thing. It's built by many different cool things, and it's going to continue to do so. It's just how we're navigating what we're going through. So for companies like Giants, hope they, they'll go, they're figuring it out. They're showing profit numbers, even regardless that they're having troubles with the United States government. And other, companies like Merida is going to figure out their secret sauce, and various others. But when it comes to like brands that are coming in with really less expensive costs, but high quality premium products, that's changing the playing field. And that's changing a playing field where Trek and Specialized and Giant have to address that. They just can't rely on their branding, because their branding doesn't hold up when it's side by side to that person that's spending the $2,000 to $3,000 to $4,000. They're going to test ride both of those. And this is not just a direct consumer sale like Canyon was. Like nobody really knew how Canyon rode until you got on one. These are going actually in the shops. Brilliant move by X-Labs. And now they're having massive sell-throughs where all the other brands are not. And you'll see the prices of the bikes that everybody's been crying about being too expensive come down. So you'll probably have that cheaper Specialized. You'll probably have that cheaper Trek, but they can't go that low because there's too many pockets to feed along the way. One brand can. Giant. They can actually address that. They have a network of bike shops. They're moving their offices in Boulder. Once they get this thing cleared up with bringing in product into the United States, they're going to be able to hit where X Labs right in the same market. Our market's not going to change. We have this. They're already saying it's going to take 3 to 5 to 10 years for this to get back to whatever we thought what was. By then, we've already forgot what it was like. So, the new norm is we're in it, and it's going to change. But for companies like Giant, they can, and they're probably already doing some test markets in South America, Australia, New Zealand, obviously Asia markets, and also Europe. They can test this stuff out, competing against X Labs. And once the United States becomes more friendly for the Giant product to come back in the United States, they're going to hit it with a different approach. They have to, as well as Trek and Specialized have to hit it with a different approach. They don't want to change, but they have to. That's the sting of it, because they want to sell less units at a higher price and make a deeper margin, which makes it easier for space and warehouse and shipping and all that. But those companies are going to have to shift and think about, well, what the hell is Walmart doing with Ozark Trail and their successes there? They're having sell-through on their more expensive Ozark Trail bikes. Crazy, right? And then you have brands specifically that are coming up and very strong, hitting this market because they're positioned like State Bicycles out of Arizona. Come on, a $9.99 gravel bike that actually looks cool and actually works, and various carbon roads and gravel and niche fun bike line. They're kind of like the new Kona, but more utility, kind of branding, that kind of thing. So, it's just interesting how everything is evolving and changing and shaking out. And working with these brands over the years, either in bike shops or what have you, it's just I'm really thankful for where I am, and I have you individuals watching me doing this. But my community has been so supportive and trusting me and working on their bikes and watching my stuff and all that. So please like and subscribe and share and all that stuff if you like this content. And I'll try to do tomorrow. I will have to make a live tomorrow on what I'm working on tomorrow. Well, let's just say it has Reynolds tubing and it's new. Sneak peek. Anyway, hopefully around tomorrow, around 10 or so, I'll have a live on just actually working on it. So we'll do the actual work tomorrow. I hope everybody's having a wonderful day on their Sunday. I know I've reached way over an hour. Okay, I just run my mouth. Go back to the chat. See if anybody has anything cool to say. Well, yeah, I'll have cool to say, but I heard Ozark Trail and REI Co-op bikes are decent. Yes. REI does actually have a mechanical staff in their store, so they're going to be built a little bit better. Ozark Trail bikes, I encourage anybody that buys one, take it to a bike shop to have like a mini tune or a safety tune or safety check, that $50 to $100 little tune up, to make sure all the bolts are tight, adjusted correctly, and shifts and all that. And maybe they'll do a little, heads up on fitting, that kind of thing. So that experience, but they're actually mechanically not bad bikes. They're actually pretty good. Man, I need to get a haircut. You'll see me. I'm getting a haircut later, so I got to get trimmed up. And REI, their co-op brand, they're very similar. They have their own bikes being built up, and this is like a Trek store. And they try to maintain those margins, but they do have to pay a manufacturer to build those. So when you have the manufacturing selling to bike shops direct, like X Labs, and Giant can do that. Oh, interesting. Yeah, the Giant bikes have been trickling in, but retrospect has been a lifesaver. Yeah, it's I mean, I've heard of it, some inventory is coming in, but I mean, they produce. I mean, that's where volume comes from. When you're seeing a little bit, you're like, oh wow, that's kind of, the well is dry, I would say. We charge for builds when people come in with new bikes. It's always more than a quick tune. Yeah, it all depends, right? If they're bringing it in a box and you just need to assemble it, that's one thing. But thanks for your insights there, Michael. Appreciate it. But yeah, if they built it and try to ride it for a while, it's all kinds of messed up, not adjusted correctly. That's where you get a can of worms. That's how I pivoted my tune-ups to kind of, but I do have like an intro level tune-up, pretty inexpensive. And that's really brought in some people. Not that I intend to upsell, but once you see the bike, it really gets them, then I can have the conversation with them if they need to step it up. And I try to, a give and take. It's like, okay, I'll do a little more work, for a lot more work for a little bit more money to make sure it's safe and to ride and all that. And they seem to be, I'm not nickel and diming them. I mean, what that should be charged at should be a lot more, but I figure it's, they're bringing it in for this price point because that's probably all they really have. So I'm trying to help my community more so in that perspective. I would not necessarily say it is a lost leader because nothing's lost on this, but what's gained is somebody actually riding a bike. I just saw a kid riding one of those motorcycles just right across. This is wearing a full face helmet. Anyway, yeah, so saying that, I'm also staring at a spider. Sorry, a little distracted. Spider distracted me. Yeah, and back to it's. Yeah, when the service departments, you got to be more community supportive. I think that's a better word for it. Do a little extra work. Let them know that you do extra work. That's no charge, but try to change the tune that you're there to support them, especially if it's a utility bike, like commuting or what have you, or for the kids' bikes. I did a whole flood of kids' bikes, various sizes, from adult sizes and smaller. I mean, they're all for the kids going back to school. And yeah, and a lot of them they start with the lower end. They just needed to make sure it's checked and safe to ride. And it's like, I get it. They're outgrown, whatever. They're only going to use it maybe twice, but they want to make sure it's safe, and maybe they'll get into it. Maybe they'll get into riding. That's great. That's awesome. So, but they're not going to get into it if they don't have a tech like myself or somebody to help them out and make sure they have the best chance possible again in cycling. That has been my core of this business, of basically getting people into riding and falling in love with cycling as much as, maybe not as much as but at least get into it and see how the benefits are huge. That kind of thing. So I implore all those who are working in the service industry portion of the cycling world to keep that in mind. And also, it really is from the top down for management and owners that your tone of your shop is dictated by your attitude. So if your bike shop owner or service manager or managers have a bad attitude or don't know what they're doing or not doing it, like not missing the mark, or they're burnt out and being really pissy with customers and all that, that trickles down to the whole staff, and that resonates through your cycling community. And you'll get a bad name sure shit fast. And if you don't get a good name in this particular market where you have every opportunity as a win for the community, you are not going to last very long. And there's a couple of shops in my neck of the woods that my customers to seek me out. They talk about those other shops, and I'm going, what the fuck are they doing? Like they are so burnt out. They need to go work at Walmart or go find something else to do or retire, because They should not be doing what they're doing, or they need to change their business model to make it less stressful for them, because that's part of it. It's really a lot of stress. And if you channel a couple things to make it a little more fluid, a little more predictable, a little more getting your life back. I've seen like one shop, he just stopped doing service altogether because he just sells enough used bikes as it is that he doesn't have to do the service component of it. And it's like I'm still making as much money, but I got my life back. Like I can go do things now, go on trips and have a weekend and, you know, things like that. And it's like, well, I mean, that sounds kind of extreme, right? But it may need to be that to some point, or you do all your service by appointment only, and then you can schedule stuff out so it's at a more of a manageable pace, that kind of thing. That's my whole business model is based off of that. So there's huge insights there. But you know, when you have a brick and mortar with an open door, it's a stressful moment. And when you start showing those stresses to your community, it's not good. Also, if you're in trouble financially, you can't let that out, because people will stop shopping at your store, even though when you need them the most, to help you get through the whatever financial woes you're going through. So it's vicious. Cycling industry and being an independent bike shop, it is one of the hardest things I've ever done and been a part of. It could be the most rewarding, but there's a lot of heartache that comes with that. So being that from the front lines with the communities that I support, to talking, you know, if anybody's listening from Trek, Specialized, and Giant, all of them, I mean, good luck to you. I mean, I don't wish you any harm, but, you know, maybe we need to have more honest conversations and seeing if there's ways that we can find better solutions to their problems as well as ours to make things more profitable and more efficient for our communities and building that cycling communities from ground up. It's all grassroots from here. Got to be part of the tree, people. I'm pointing to my shirt if you're just listening, because I have a big tree with cycles on it. Anyway. All right, I'm rambling. Yeah, that was the rambling portion of it. Sorry. But thank you for jumping in. I'll go and read some of these in the chat here. Oh, you give free, yeah, you know, free tune-ups have always been part of a lot of bike shops, and you put a restriction on that. You put it like on the 90 days, yeah, that kind of thing. I worked at one shop once. They had free tune-ups for life, which about fucking killed them. It killed me when I worked for them. It was insane. It was like, why are you doing this? This is so, because they were competing against their competitor and they were tooth and nail. The competitor went out of business, and then there were left with all the free tune-ups for life on their bikes. Bicycle Village used to do that here in Colorado, but there was a stipulation: you only could get your free tune-up done in January, off season. So I mean, it's just, yeah, you don't need to be throwing free labor away. You can be supportive. And support those brands that people are buying direct to consumer as much as you can. And there's limitations to that, of course, because if it's an e-bike or whatever, but for just normal bikes, I mean, just put yourself in their shoes. I mean, come on, we all got used to buying stuff online during COVID. I mean, that's our instinct, our behavior. That's the shopping behavior. So either you can embrace it and be a part of the solution, or be a part of the problem and making these people ride a bike that's unsafe to ride, and they either get hurt or don't like riding anymore. So the part of the solution is getting it fixed up with a, you know, inexpensive or price appropriate service charge, and then they have a better experience, and then they actually may like you. It might be a match made in heaven. May find your true partner. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. So now I have, you have a great, Michael, you have a great point there, because I have a lot of customers. I mean, they'll buy stuff online, and I'm fine with that. That's fine. I can't provide everything for them, and I get it. They're price sensitive, what have you. But a lot of the times now they're coming to me either asking me like, oh, do you carry this, or you have something Like, for example, I did a tune-up on a bike, and the wheel set, it's an older wheel set, and he didn't quite like how it performed, and maybe making little noises, but it's just old. And it was like, let me check with you and see if what you can provide. I have a source for wheels, but that might not be exactly what he's looking for, but at least he's giving me an opportunity. And when he does, he's not alienated that he bought the wheel or part or whatever from somewhere else to have me do the work on it. See, there's the little attitude, human behavior notes that people pick up on, behaviors, because you're like, oh, you bought that from somebody else. No, don't bring that in here to have me work on it. Like, no, that's what they're hearing when you have that slight pause in your conversation. See, you got to be very careful when you're having a conversation with a customer about those things. Like, well, I mean, this is what I provide, but if you find something else, let me know, and I'll tell you, my opinion on it. And if it does work out, I'll be more than happy to get you set up. That's simple. You got to keep that mindset, and it's hard because you got to do it every second to every minute to every hour of every day you're open. Without getting a little bitchy about it. Because, of course you want them to buy it from you, but you got to understand, of course, you're not the only one selling stuff. But you could be their person to have all their stuff worked on, and they at least gave you a chance. That's all you're asking. You just give me a chance. And if it's not exactly a myth, don't be miffed about it. Not at all, whatsoever. Love it. You bought 3 Canyons bikes in the last 4 years. Only issues was losing a loose headset. Everything else was perfect. So Canyon is really good of getting bikes to direct to consumer and with really good videos to support that, to get that bike good. They're one of the few companies that you can buy a bike and be pretty much dialed if you know how to turn a wrench and understand what a torque wrench is that they provide, which all those little parts. If you buy any bikes other than Canyon, I really implore you, even if it's a Trek or a Specialized, to have it checked by a mechanic of your choice to make sure that it is assembled correctly. Case in point, worked on a bike this week, a tune-up, okay? And I bought the bike in Texas. It was a Trek. And I know why the front hub was loose and the rear one was tight. It was from the build, the original build. Because when the bike comes out of the box, they don't take the rear wheel off to check the hub. A lot of them don't. They just throw on the front wheel and the pedals and straighten the bars and put in the seat and call it good and make sure it shifts and stops. Okay, the bike does work, technically. Well, does it work as most efficient as possible? No. Will the parts that are not adjusted correctly cause harm later? Maybe. But they will cost the customer money later on because that rear hub will blow out, the rear will be sloppy and may cause an accident and various other things. So if the bike is not touched, and I would say fine-tuned loosely to make sure it's just adjusted correctly, from hubs to truing the wheels, spoke tensions, cable tensions, alignment of cables, all those things that as a mechanic you basically just do because you've been doing it for so long. It'll make it super safe for them to ride, best experience possible. And guess what? They are your new next best buddy, and they love your shop and then whatever else they see, Kool-Aid, from wax chains to ceramic coating, you might be the person that they go to first. That's all you can ask, right? So anyway, yeah, lots of good comments there. And Canyon is one of the few, but I would say even with the Treks and the Specialized and the X Labs, even though they may have some good supportive stuff to it, and anything that's shipped directly from anything other than, definitely have it looked into. Please, for God's sake, be safe. But yeah, and it's those little things that will cause you trouble later on. Oh yeah, I pull the wheels, check the hub preload. spoke tensions with the tensionometer. Yeah, I got one of those. Truing a truing stand, torque wrench, all the bolts and fasteners. Yeah, absolutely. All those little things. And it's also the little things that, you know, having a barrel adjuster, be able to turn it, you know, make sure the rotor, and some of the stuff gets dinged up during shipping. I mean, shipping is hard on bikes, period. And, you know, it's like, you know, the rotor, I mean, like, okay, let's put it this way. I had a Niner bike sent to me brand new in the box from Jensen's. And Jensen's, you would say, was selling, I mean, they sell bikes, they sell a ton of bikes. What they do is they pre-build it, put it back in the box. It's absurdly huge box, but they put it back in the box. And it is pretty simple to pull it out and straighten the bars, put the wheel in the seat post, and throw your pedals on, and you're good to go. And they have videos to support those. Problem was with this one, the rotors are bent, need to be trued. One of the hubs was not adjusted. It wasn't shifting correctly. Somehow the hanger got, you know, misaligned. So whoever pre-built it to put it back in the box to be sent didn't really make sure completely it's ready. They're talking volume here. And there had some tube issues or something like that later on. But anyway, you know, once I got through the bike and did a little static fitting, the customer was super happy, had a great time on the bike. And, you know, it's like anytime they'll have issues with the bike, they'll come, at least they'll give me a try first. That's all I can ask, you know. And, you know, if they have a shop that's closer to them, they like them as much, or get, you know, service that they need, that's fine. You know, it's like, we're all a community here. We're trying to support our community. And it's just dumbfounded. It blows my mind that I'll have people drive an hour and a half one way to have me work on their bike. In total, they spend 6 hours driving just to have me do their repair or tune up on their bike. Nuts, right? I hope I provide the value of that. And some of them are like, that's great. It's awesome. Some of it is like, oh, they saw me on YouTube. Sure. Great. That's awesome. That has that push. But quite honestly, I just, you know, I just feel like it's just amazing what you can do with various different outlets and, you know, things and all that. But in any case, well, you like jibber jabber, you got a full of it today. Thanks. I did ramble a little bit, but yeah, the whole giant thing is very interesting. And they're not going to go away. I mean, they're not a Raleigh. They're not a brand name that's been purchased, or a GT or a Niner. They're going to be around for a long time. And yeah, keep the conversation going if you watch this on the replay. But yeah, it's one of those things where we're in some very difficult, twisted times, different for sure. And there's no quick change back to what it was. So Giant needs to figure out a solution. Trek has to figure out what they want to see themselves being. Specialized needs to take a look of what they're going to do to the market or be a part of it, because it's changed. I mean, yeah, you still have your high-end roadies, you got your high-end mountain bikers, and they're getting some of that stuff. Then you have this huge utility insurgence right now. And when I say that it's more economical and purposeful bikes that are easy to work on, simpler, shifts, stops, get you there, not too heavy, and price point. And that's where we're going to have to support that more so if these companies want to sustain, because they just can't rely on their branding of being a high-end line anymore. I worked on the bike last week. I think you may have seen a short on it. And it was a Trek 800. These things retailed for $219 back in the late 90s. $219. Now still kind of, that's more like your $500 bike today, as in, you know, price changes and all that, inflation, what have you. But the case in point, what's been proven pretty intensely. I see almost as many Ozark Trail videos about bikes. I mean, Active can't stop talking about him. Great guy, but he has a mountain bike and he has a gravel bike and he's doing all these crazy things to it. But the content is out there just as much as the X Labs. So there you go. That's your. Those are the brands. So Trek needs to come up with a lower price point bike to get people into riding. So here's the scenario. Everybody remembers like their first bike, right? With the brand, like, oh, I had this bike, or at least something, or the current one that they bought. Even in the used market, I found this very interesting. Is a lot of people that bought used bikes from me is mostly price point and fit, right? Initially, but once I got them on that bike, they're all of a sudden if they had a great experience with that, that turns out that their bike, that brand, becomes what they really like. Like they think that, not knowing there's like 50 different brands and different geometries and all that. I mean, they all make good bikes. Like, let's just say that. Even pool there, they all just have different fits and different flavors and different colors and everything else in between. But they get this Trek and they ride this Trek. Like, this is an awesome Trek. I want another Trek. I'm like, this one's kind of wearing out, or maybe I want a gravel or a different version or different type. They're going to look at that brand first. If they're still used market price point, they're still going to look at that price point. But what if they had a new version of that with warranties and all that fluff to come with it from the shop? They'll be really intrigued. Like, oh, so you're saying there's a $799 Trek gravel bike. So they're familiar with Trek. They're riding a Trek OCLV carbon. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit heavier, but they're going to kind of like the brand. And they'll probably buy that without shopping too much further. But if they go to a bike shop, they walk in, they see that Trek. All right. But, like that Trek bike is $1,500. Then the guy rolls out a $1,000 state bike. Like, hey, take this for a spin. See what you think. Or if they're looking at a $2,000 price point bike, like, oh, check out this X Lab right next to it. Take this for a spin. Put the bike in their hands, and the price point is a little bit cheaper. They're going to get that 9 times out of 10. Case in point, back in the 90s, we carried 3 different brands. We had Fuji at one time, we had GT, we had Trek, we had Schwinn, we had some other ones, Jameis. We always had a headliner. Some people just will buy the headliner, regardless, hands down. That's what I want. That's what you need when you're a bike shop. You want that headliner. But you got your warm-up bands. Fuji is one that was really good. Jameis was another one that was really good, because similar componentry, little cheaper. Broke great. If they're price point sensitive and not really caring about the Kool-Aid too much, and they're like, hey, if I could save a couple $100 here, they're going to do it. GT was a whole different anomaly, more of a BMX derivative company. Same thing with Mongoose. But anyway, but they made some really cool mountain bikes. And then, they all have like their $200 to $300 price point. But when you're looking at like some of those brands, like the Jameses and the Fujis, they specifically market their stuff, but it was a lot less aggressive than it is X Labs right now. That's huge. And guess what? Trek and Specialized and Giant, they don't have anything in the price point of what Ozark Trail has going for them right now. Ozark Trail's problem right now is they just can't get enough bikes in the States fast enough. And apparently one of the people at Walmart, Ozark Trail is a Walmart brand, likes cycling, wants to invest in cycling. They are investing in the cycling. They're looking at opportunities of building their cycling presence. So either embrace it or get affected by it. So yeah, I would be very, very worried as a bike manufacturer of these stories, because they are definitely going to impede and affect their company's bottom line for the next years to come, unless they do some changes. which I kind of laid out. You got to make a cheaper bike. Got to bring in that Kool-Aid. Even though it's a loss leader for the companies, they got to do it. They got to do something. I know it's more volumes, everything they don't want to do, but the days of yesterday are not coming back. Not at all. We're in a new norm, and our new norm from here is going to change. It's not going to be what it is today, but it's definitely never, ever going to be like for a long, long time. I will probably never see what it was like back in the, early 2000s with the corporate stores or concept stores. And then like we've seen with the corporate stores, and they may get there again at some point, maybe, but it is not looking promising for any of that perspective of coming back. Absolutely. So all of you take care of your families. It's nice in your neck of the woods. Please go for a ride. Keep the rubber side down. Support your local shops. Trying to find your community. Try to be positive those in your community and your community. I know it's hard, but try to, that's just that mechanic. It's August. That mechanic is just so stressed out. Buy him a coffee, give him some donuts or something. Tip him actual cash. Don't give him alcohol. As owners, winter's coming. I know it's really hard to think of it, but sure shit, if you've been in the business as long as I have, I'm already preparing for the off season. You got to cut out that couple hours, 3 or 4 hours a week right now to prepare, because it's going to come and it's going to slap you so hard in the face that you may not be around for next spring. So those lifetime tune-ups ain't going to be a lifetime, are they? Anyway, I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you all for joining in, especially those who are a part of, and seen you guys quite a bit. Schwinn guy, love it. The pedal driven 14 X Labs could be a bike without hydraulic brakes, just frame set. I'm not sure about that, but check with my buddy Aaron at Go Guava. He'll be able to answer that. He's in Pennsylvania, but he can ship it to you. Anyway, yeah, I'm gonna go up through the list here. Oh, 2463. Yeah, welcome to the garage. And yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, I kind of was more talking than reading the chat. It's hard to keep up with all you guys now. Write up a lot. I try to support my local bike shop, but sometimes I'm basically impatient. So I do DIY. I'll pay full retail for parts and a bit more for labor if I can get my bike done quicker. Yeah, that's the time component, especially this time of year. It depends on the shop and business model and all that. Some shops are still doing like that. Oh, we're a week or two out. I implore all bike shops to start doing appointment based. So 2463, if they had appointment-based system, like you can drop it off, let's say next Thursday, and they have it done in 2 days, that might be something, a little bit better, and you're only gone with your bike for a couple of days. But yeah, I understand the impatience, especially in the heat of the moment, that kind of thing. But it's kind of hard. But a lot of shops, beware of the 24-hour service, though. That kind of thing. Olan Walao, thank you for joining back in. Thank you for being part of the conversation, or at least listening in. Thank you for hanging out with us. Schwinn guy, love it. Michael, just going through the list here. Make sure I do some appropriate shout outs for all you for supporting me here and being, it's live, got to keep it interactive, right? See if there's anything here that I should touch upon. Every part of the chain supply is having issues. That is a very true statement. Every part of it, every aspect of it. There's really good people doing really good things, but man, everybody's having their challenges. Oh, I had some competition today. Some bike former posted. Oh, yeah, that guy. Yeah, it's a competition this morning. Bike former. Well, I mean, that's a video. You can go see his video at any time. I'm live and you can interact with me, that kind of thing. He was doing live, so I think he stopped I think he's had success. I implore the guy. I know he's a good guy at heart. He's been in it. Good. I'm thankful for his successes and so forth. But yeah, a little side note, he and I monetized in the same month. He just, I think it's a little bit luck. His audience, he reaches a different audience a little bit. Invite all his audience to come over and hang out and watch me, see if, but he works on a little bit lower end bikes. So, I work on a little older, but a little higher end. So if you want to look at a little bit different stuff, I wouldn't say higher, more mid-range, mid-grade, utility stuff. I'm still working as a functioning garage. He closed his shop down. So because of his successes, so I can't blame him, of course. Let's see here. Yeah, I got to wrap it up. My daughter probably needs something. Oh, thank you for the thoughtful content. Yeah, I went through my bitter phase, to be quite honest. I think everybody goes through a bitter phase in the cycling. If you work in it long enough, I can't say I always was the best mechanic. I can't always say I was the best person. My personal life was early 2000s was difficult for me, and therefore I'm sure it reflected on my when I worked at the shop that I was at, that kind of thing, and the burnout. So what helped me is I did step out for a moment, work for Big Five Sporting Goods chain instead. Now is when there was no advancement or career path in bike shops at that time. So you basically just did the same thing over and over again and hope for the different, but pay wasn't great. But when you went to a corporate chain store, you got benefits, you got time off, you got all those things. It was very appealing. Although when I did that jump, I still worked at the shop part-time. So I never really got away from it completely. But it made it more manageable. And yes, I did have to take a break after I'd been doing it for about 15 years ish, for the responsibility portion of it being management, what have you. Fast forward today, what I have built in my shop for being appointment based and community building and all that. It's pretty amazing, the outreach and support. And I'm not saying there's not stress. There's always stresses, but it's become more manageable in the shop portion of it, and seeing a lot of successes. And if anything, at the end of the day, I feel more validated and complete of what I'm doing. And I'm hoping I'm sharing that. I'm hoping I'm encouraging. I'm hoping I'm getting people some insights. Maybe they just tweak their lives one way or another, either riding, cycling, to managing the shop and what have you, just being a little more positive and forward, that kind of thing. So anyway, but I hope, all of us, we're in this together, right? And we really, really are. So, part of my family tree, I do have some trusted partners that really are helping me out, and I hope I'm helping them out too. That's the thing. It's like it's a twofer. Like these guys, Vivo, new branding, cool water bottle cages, water bottle, stainless steel. Plastics are less there. They use silicone, but the fast flowing gets so much water in one swig. It's insane. But great small company, doing good things. And hopefully you'll see a video, hopefully drop on Tuesday, about the owner. I had an interview with the owner. Really cool person, really cool company. So that's what I'm trying to do, in addition to entertain you and wackadoodle mechanic doing this thing in the garage, running, like this morning, running his mouth, which we all sometimes do. And then tomorrow you're going to see some cool work on a really cool Reynolds tubing. I love steel. Steel is real. And the guy bought another one. It's going to be here in like around Christmas. So cool. You'll have to tune in tomorrow. Yeah, I love it. That's true with the Raleigh. It's underneath the same cell group in Europe. They're all going to the chopping block. Oh, is your leg healing? Yeah. Yeah, I had some cancer cut off my leg, and they got it before it got any weird. But I do have like a good, I'd say it's a 6-inch scar on my leg. It's weird though. It still has internal stitches. They're still healing, which takes like 3 to 6 months. I get one of those weird phantom pains. It's weird. It's like all of a sudden like twinges, like, oh, weird. Why? But no, I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Appreciate it. All right, guys. I should probably go do something productive. Yeah, got things going on. Got to get a haircut. Got some bikes to work on. Oh, I should probably give you a sneak peek of what I've been working on. You guys like steel frames. This is one of those things. I'm in, a phase of the used market where you buy a bike used, right? And you're anticipating, should I part it out for profit, or will I make more money? Which one's going to make me more money, as in parts, which is still a valid need, parts and a frame and that. So people like building stuff up, and then, or providing a full bike. So it does the process each bike, and then I have to do the suasion on them. This one I decided to put together, and it's this Le Mans women's 49 a centimeter. Really rough. You'll see the short video on this, and it's like cobwebs and ugly. Just finished the detailing of the frame, ceramic coated, cleaned the wheels. Actually, the rims were not cracked yet, so we're just going to keep those on. Ultegra componentry, except for the shifters, were the next level down, but it does have bump outs, so for shorter reach on there. And these little covers that I had 3D printed. Those ugly pieces there. This is going to be, a fun still. But this is something I just learned that I noticed on this bike when I was working on it. And it has Reynolds, 853 Reynolds, right? Here's the thing, though. When I was detailing the frame, I noticed this has a vertical oval at the head tube and a horizontal oval at the bottom. So it's tapered, butted, which I don't recall the earlier models of the Reynolds tubing on this one. I don't know if it's just the Zurich. The Zurich model also has the Reynolds in the back. You'll see a sticker on the back here on the chainstay. So that's where you're looking at different levels, like Buenos Aires, and then maybe another model may have the main tubes will be 853 Reynolds, but they'll have different like Tanguay tubing or what have you in the back. So they do mix those, but the geometry is going to be the same. And quite honestly, you're not going to tell the difference in the ride quality. But what this does is, like in the aluminum frames, it makes the lateral stiffness here and the vertical stiffness and then lateral stiffness down here, so you have more acceleration in the rear. So little cool tech on old bike, which still is relevant and classic Le Mans. So maybe I'll be able to find a time to get a hold of Le Mans himself, and maybe he'll grant me the privilege of interviewing him one of these days. I have to get Bradley to, he worked with him at Trek back in the day, so maybe we can pull some strings. So if anybody knows Le Mans personally, or at least has his phone number, like, hey, you need to talk to this guy. You talked to Fisher. Now your turn. Same thing with Bontrager. That'd be cool. Yeah, I actually have a Bontrager in here. Anyway, hope you guys have a great time. Oh, am I one of your favorite bicycle people on YouTube? I'll get to meet you in person someday. It'll be autograph my bike. Sure, I'd autograph it, but you won't be able to read it. Doctor's handwriting. So accused. But yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks all for hanging out with me. And yeah, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And I just enjoy doing these lives and interaction. It's just so cool. Yeah, but yeah, it's just, very humble sometimes. Out of all these challenging times, I know we're all going through something, and it's really great that we're a community that's pulling together. So let's keep pulling together, keep stuff fun and real, and do some cool things. And I have cool things planned in the pipeline, so you'll see. Always changing here, and yeah, please like, subscribe, share. Makes this channel. So one day I'll be closer to as big as the bike farmer. I would say I'd be the bike rancher, but it's a little side note. I actually did grow up on a farm. So who's the real farmer now? Yeah, it's all good. Anyway, hope you enjoy the jibber jabber. Get out there and do something fun today. Hopefully Monday will be a little less stressful. And thank you everybody for hanging out. Here's a little extra. See if I can find it. I had troubles last week. I have troubles every week. Who am I kidding? There you go. Oh, where did it go? The cool one. I don't know. I'll just give you this image and do a rollout. Boom. Oh, no. This one. There we go. Hey, got to have a little bit of bike club. Bike club? Love, I mean. Has anybody ever heard of a bike called Fairlight from England? That's the teaser tomorrow. Got to check it out. Gravel bike. Built it up. Oh, man, it was like over a year ago now. But man, they do have some really cool Reynolds tubing. And we'll go into detail on that. Do some high-end ceramic coating on that bad boy too. Anyway, you guys have a wonderful day.